The throne room of the Velanthari Empire stretched so far that Commander Marcus Cole could barely see the golden walls at the other end. He stood in chains at the center of a marble floor that reflected the light of 1,000 floating crystals. And around him sat the most powerful beings in 12 star systems. The Emperor himself watched from a throne carved from the bones of a dead world, and his 7 children sat below him like predators waiting for meat. Marcus had been a prisoner. For 3 weeks now, his ship had been ambushed during what was supposed to be a simple diplomatic mission, and his crew was scattered across a dozen detention facilities throughout the Empire. He was the prize, and everyone knew it. The Velanthari were tall and elegant, with skin that shifted colors based on their emotions and eyes that could see. Spectrum's humans could only dream of. They had ruled this part of the galaxy for 10,000 years, and they considered most other species to be little more than animals. But humans were different. Humans had done something impossible when the Kreth Dominion had invaded human space with a fleet of 10,000 ships. The galaxy had expected humanity to fall within days. Instead, the war lasted 7 years and ended with the Kreth begging for peace. No one understood how the humans had won. They were physically weak, and their technology was primitive, and their civilization was barely 1,000 years old. But they had won, and now every empire in the galaxy wanted to know their secret. The Emperor raised one long hand, and the chamber fell silent. Today we hold a ceremony unlike any other. His voice echoed through the vast space. A human commander has fallen into our possession. And rather than execute him or sell him to the fighting pits, I have decided to offer him as a gift. Murmurs rippled through the assembled nobles. My children will each make an offer, the Emperor continued, and the human will choose which of them he wishes to serve. Marcus felt the weight of hundreds of eyes upon him. He had expected torture or interrogation or a quick death. This was something else entirely. The eldest prince, Rose First Prince Catherine, was a mountain of muscle and confidence, and his skin glowed a deep, satisfied purple as he strode forward. Human, he said, with a voice like rolling thunder, I am heir to the greatest military force in the galaxy, and if you serve me, I will give you command of an entire fleet. He smiled, showing teeth that could bite through steel. You will conquer worlds in my name, and your enemies will tremble at the sound of your ships. Marcus said nothing. He simply watched. The second to rise was Princess Velith, and she moved like water flowing across silk. Her skin shimmered between gold and silver, and her eyes held the cold calculation of a merchant who had never lost a deal. I control the trade routes between 6 star systems, she said. Serve me, and you will have wealth beyond your imagination, and your family will live in palaces, and your descendants will never know want. Marcus nodded politely, but did not respond. One by one, the other royals made their offers. The warrior prince promised glory in combat. The scholar princess offered access to knowledge forbidden to outsiders. The twin princes spoke of political power and influence at the highest levels of galactic society. Each offer was grander than the last. Each royal tried to outdo their siblings with promises of power and riches and fame. Marcus listened to them all, but his eyes kept drifting to the back of the chamber. There in the shadows sat a figure that none of the others seemed to notice. She was smaller than her siblings, and her skin was a pale gray that barely shifted at all. She sat alone with no attendants and no guards and no nobles seeking her favor. When the last of the 6 had made their offer, Emperor looked at Marcus with amusement. Well, human, he said, you have heard what my children can give you, and which of them do you choose? Marcus straightened his spine despite the weight of his chains. I have heard 6 offers, your majesty, he said, but I count 7 children, and I would hear from the 7th before I decide. Silence crashed through the throne room like a physical force. Then the laughter began. Nobles howled with amusement, and the 6 royals exchanged glances of disbelief, and even the Emperor's lips twitched with something between confusion and contempt. You Wish to hear from Cyrith, the Emperor said, her name like it tasted bad in his mouth. She has nothing to offer you human, and she controls no fleets and commands no wealth and holds no power. Nevertheless, Marcus said, I would hear from her. The chamber slowly quieted as all eyes turned to the forgotten princess. Cyrith rose from her seat in the shadows and walked forward. Her steps were measured and careful, like someone who had learned long ago not to draw attention. When she reached the center of the chamber, she stood before Marcus and met his eyes directly. I am keeper of the Imperial Archives, she said, and her voice was soft but clear. It is a title given to me because no one else wanted it, and the archives themselves have been abandoned for centuries. She paused, and her gray skin flickered with the faintest hint of blue. I cannot offer you fleets or gold or glory. She continued, I have no power to give you, and no riches to share, and no future to promise. The nobles snickered. Cyrith ignored them. All I have are questions, she said. Questions I cannot answer alone, and mysteries that have haunted me since I first learned to read, and truths that someone buried long ago, because they were too dangerous to remember. She looked at Marcus with eyes that held something he had not seen in any of her siblings. Honesty. I offer you nothing but the chance to seek those answers with me. The throne room erupted in mockery. The princes laughed and the princesses sneered, and the nobles whispered about the foolish human who had wasted his one chance at survival. But Marcus Cole smiled for the first time since his capture. He had studied the Voluntary Empire for 15 years. He knew things about them that they did not know about themselves, and he knew that the answers he sought would not be found in fleets or treasuries or battlefields. They would be found in forgotten places, in abandoned archives, in the company of someone the powerful had learned to ignore. I accept, Marcus said. The laughter stopped. The Emperor leaned forward with genuine surprise on his ancient face. You choose Cyrith, he said. You choose nothing. Marcus turned to face the throne, and his chains clinked in the sudden silence. With respect, Your Majesty, he said, I choose everything that matters. And in that moment, the forgotten princess and the captured human began a partnership that would shake the foundations of an empire. The Imperial Archives occupied a tower at the edge of the palace complex, and nobody had visited them in decades. Dust covered everything like gray snow, and the lights flickered with age, and the silence was so deep that Marcus could hear his own heartbeats. Cyrith walked ahead of him through corridors lined with data, crystals and ancient books and artifacts from civilizations that had died before humanity. Learn to make fire. This is everything, she said, gesturing at the endless shelves. 10,000 years of history and knowledge and secrets, and nobody cares about any of it. Marcus ran his fingers along a row of crystals and left trails in the dust. Why did they abandon this place? He asked. Cyrith stopped walking, and her skin flickered with something dark. Because remembering is dangerous, she said. The Empire does not want to know what it used to be, and only wants to believe in what it has become. She turned to face him, and in the dim light her eyes looked almost human. Why did you really choose me, Commander Cole? Marcus had expected this question. He had prepared for it during the long walk from the throne room through sneering crowds and past laughing guards. But now that the moment had come, he found himself wanting to tell her the truth. Before my capture, he said, human intelligence intercepted a transmission from deep inside the Empire. And it was encrypted in ways we had never seen before, and it took us months to decode even a fragment. Cyrith listened without interruption. The fragment spoke of something called the Illuminated Path, Marcus continued. It described a plan that has been unfolding for centuries, and a conspiracy that reaches into every level of your government. What kind of plan? Marcus met her eyes. War, he said. Not just any war, but a final war. And one that will destroy every species in the galaxy, except the Voluntari. Cyrith's skin went completely white. That is insane, she whispered. Such a war would cost trillions of lives, and it would devastate entire star systems, and even if we won, we would rule nothing but ashes. Yes, Marcus agreed, which is why I need to understand who is behind it and why they want it and how they plan to make it happen. He gestured at the archives around them. The answers are here somewhere. Princess and I am certain of it because conspiracies. This old leave traces and they cannot hide everything forever. Cirith was quiet for a long moment when she spoke again. Her voice was stronger than before. I have spent my entire life in these archives, she said. I was sent here as a child because my father could not bear to look at me, and my siblings did not want me, and the servants did not know what to do with a princess that nobody claimed. She began walking again, and Marcus followed. I have read things that no one else remembers. She continued, I have found gaps in the official histories and contradictions in the records and names that appear once and then vanish as if they never existed. She stopped in front of a massive door sealed with locks that looked ancient. I always knew something was wrong with the Empire, she said. I could feel it like a splinter in my mind, but I never had the courage to dig deeper alone. She turned to Marcus, and for the first time he saw hope in her eyes. But I am not alone anymore, am I? Marcus shook his head. No, princess, you are not. Over the following weeks, they fell into a rhythm. Cirith knew the archives like she knew her own heartbeat, and she could find any record within minutes, and she understood the old languages and forgotten filing systems that would have taken Marcus years to learn. But Marcus brought something else. Humans had a gift that other species found almost supernatural. They could see patterns. They could take 1,000 unrelated facts and weave them into a story, and they could spot connections that should have been invisible. It was how humanity had won the war against the Kreth, not with superior weapons or tactics, but with the ability to predict what the enemy would do before they did it. Together, Marcus and Cirith made a formidable team. They worked through the nights with data crystals scattered across tables and holographic displays filling the air with ancient text, and slowly the truth began to emerge. Look at this, Marcus said one evening, pointing to a timeline he had constructed on the wall. Every major policy shift in the last 500 years, and every expansion and every war, and they all followed the same pattern. Cirith studied the timeline with growing horror. The advisors, she said. Different names, but always the same positions, and whenever the Empire was about to choose peace, someone new would appear, and suddenly war became inevitable. Not just advisors, Marcus added. Trade officials and military commanders and even religious leaders, and they are all connected if you know how to look. He pulled up another display showing a web of relationships. They call themselves the Order of the Illuminated Path, he said, and they have been shaping the Empire for centuries. Cirith sank into a chair. Why? She asked. What do they gain from endless war? Control, Marcus said. War makes people afraid, and afraid people follow strong leaders, and strong leaders need enemies to justify their power, and the cycle never ends. He knelt beside her. But they need something to start the final war, princess. And something big enough to unite all your siblings behind a single cause. Cirith looked at him with dawning understanding. A human, she said. They need a human to do something terrible. Marcus nodded grimly. My capture was not an accident, he said. I was always meant to be here, and I was always meant to be the spark that ignites the galaxy. Before either of them could speak again, the archive doors exploded. Inward guards poured through the opening with weapons raised, and behind them walked Prince Catherine with a smile of cruel satisfaction. Princess Cirith, he announced loudly enough for the recording devices to capture. You are under arrest for treason against the Empire and for conspiring with a human spy to assassinate our father. Cirith rose to her feet with dignity. I have done nothing wrong, brother. The evidence says otherwise. Catherine sneered. We found communications between you and human military command, and we found weapons hidden in your quarters, and We found poison in your personal supplies. Lies, Sirith said. All of it planted by your masters. Catherine's smile flickered for just a moment. Take them both, he ordered. The Emperor will want to see them before their execution. But Marcus had not survived 15 years of intelligence work without learning a few tricks. As the guards moved forward, he grabbed Sirith's hand and pulled her toward a section of shelving that looked exactly like all the others. This way, he said. I found it last week, and I was hoping we would not need it. He pressed a hidden switch, and a section of wall slid open, revealing stairs that descended into darkness. They ran. Behind them, Catherine screamed orders, and guards fired weapons that scorched the ancient walls. But Marcus and Sirith were already gone, swallowed by the depths of the archives, by secrets that had been buried for 10,000 years, and by a darkness that held answers nobody was supposed to find. The stairs descended for what felt like hours. Marcus and Sirith moved through darkness so complete that they had to hold hands to keep from losing each other. The sounds of pursuit faded above them, and eventually there was nothing but silence. And the echo of their footsteps. I did not know these tunnels existed, Sirith whispered. Neither did anyone else, Marcus replied. I found a reference to them in a maintenance log from 8,000 years ago, and the entry had been partially deleted but not completely. How did you even notice that? Marcus almost smiled despite the danger. Humans are very good at finding things that people try to hide. The stairs finally ended at a massive door covered in symbols that glowed faintly. In the darkness, Sirith reached out and touched the surface. These are old, she said. Older than the current empire and older than the dynasty my family claims to have founded. Can you read them? Sirith studied the symbols for a long moment. It says this is the heart of memory, she translated. And it says that only those who seek truth may enter. The door recognized something in her touch and began to open with a sound like ancient stone. Grinding against ancient stone, light spilled out from within. They stepped through and found themselves in a chamber that should not have existed. It was vast beyond imagining, with walls covered in crystals that pulsed with soft blue light. Data streams flowed through the air like rivers of living information, and at the center of it all stood a pedestal holding a single glowing sphere. What is this place? Marcus breathed. Sirith walked forward in a daze. The original archives, she said. The ones that existed before the Order rewrote everything. She reached the pedestal, and the sphere responded to her presence. Images began to form in the air around them. They saw the Velanthari as they once were, not conquerors, but explorers, not warriors, but scholars. The ancient Velanthari had traveled the galaxy not to dominate, but to learn, and they had made friends with hundreds of species, and they had built a civilization based on knowledge and cooperation. We were never meant to be an empire, Sirith said, and tears streamed down her face. We were meant to be teachers. Marcus watched the images change. He saw the moment when everything shifted. A group of Velanthari had grown frustrated with the slow pace of exploration, and they believed that their species was superior. And they thought the galaxy should bow to their greatness. They called themselves the Illuminated Path. They started small, Marcus observed. A few key assassinations and some forged documents and a couple of convenient wars. The images showed how the Order had worked over generations. They placed their people in positions of power, and they eliminated anyone who remembered the old ways, and they burned the original archives and replaced them with lies. Within 1,000 years, the Velanthari had forgotten who they truly were. My ancestors, Sirith said. They fought against this. The sphere showed her a woman who looked remarkably like Sirith herself. She had been a princess too, and she had discovered the Order's plans, and she had hidden these archives before they could destroy them. The Order had killed her for it, but not before she recorded a message. The image shifted, and suddenly the ancient princess was speaking directly to them. If you are seeing this, then the Order still exists, and our work was not enough, she said. I have preserved everything I could and the truth about who we are and the evidence of what they have done. Her eyes seemed to look right at Cirith. You carry my blood, and I can feel it across the centuries, and you are the one I have been waiting for. The image flickered. The Order cannot be defeated with weapons, the ancient princess continued. They have had too long to prepare, and they control too much, and they are ready for any military threat. Then how? Cirith asked, even though she knew it was only a recording. The truth, the princess replied. The Valenthari people are not evil, and they have simply forgotten who they are. And if you can remind them, then the Order will have no power over them. The sphere began to pulse more rapidly. I have stored everything here, the princess said. Every document they destroyed and every confession they silenced and every piece of evidence they buried, and take it and use it and save our people from the darkness they have been trapped in. The recording ended, but the sphere continued to glow and data streams began flowing toward Marcus and Cirith like they were being chosen. It is downloading everything, Marcus said, checking a device on his wrist. Thousands of years of hidden history, and all of it authentic and all of it verifiable. Cirith wiped her tears, and her skin began to shift from gray to something brighter. Can we get this information out? She asked. Can we show people what the Order has done? Marcus was already thinking. My people have been preparing for something like this, he said. Not a war, but an alliance, and there are dozens of species who have suffered under the Empire and who would love to see it change. He pulled out a small device from a hidden pocket in his clothing. This is a quantum transmitter, he explained. It can send a signal across the galaxy in seconds, and I've been waiting for the right moment to use it. What? Will you tell them? Marcus looked at her with something like admiration. I will tell them that we found what we were looking for, and that the Valenthari Empire can be saved, but only if we move quickly. He activated the transmitter and sent coded message into the void. Somewhere across the galaxy, humanity received it, and they began to mobilize. Not armies, allies. Meanwhile, far above them, the Order's plans were accelerating. The Emperor had been poisoned by his own advisors, and he lay dying in his chambers while his children gathered like vultures. The evidence against Cirith had been distributed throughout the Empire, and every news channel showed her face alongside Marcus and called them assassins and traitors. The 6 remaining royals stood ready to declare war on humanity. Everything the Order had worked for was finally coming to fruition. They will announce the war tomorrow, Cirith said, reading the data streams that flowed through the hidden archives. At my father's funeral, they will use his death to justify genocide. Marcus stood beside her and watched the preparations unfolding above them. Then we have 1 day to stop them. Cirith turned to face him. My people have forgotten who they are, she said. They have been lied to for so long that the lies feel like truth. Then remind them, Marcus said. How can I possibly reach them? Marcus smiled, and it was the smile of someone who had been planning for this moment his entire life. You are the keeper of the archives, princess, he said, and it is time for the archives to speak. He began working on the ancient systems around them, connecting them to networks that have been dormant for millennia. The old broadcast systems are still here, he said. They built them into the foundations of every major city, and the Order never found them because they did not know they existed. Cirith understood. We can reach everyone, she said, every Valenthari in the Empire at the same moment. Yes, Marcus. Confirmed. But someone will have to speak to them, and someone will have to show them the truth and make them believe it. He looked at her. It has to be you, princess. Cirith felt fear rising in her chest. She had spent her entire life being ignored, and she had never spoken to anyone who mattered, and she had no practice at inspiring people. But she thought of the ancient princess who had died to preserve the truth. She thought of the servants who had shown her kindness when her family showed her nothing. She thought of the galaxy that would burn if she stayed silent. I will do it, she said. Marcus nodded. Then let us get ready, he said. Tomorrow we save an empire, or we die trying. In the darkness, beneath the forgotten archives, a human and a princess prepared to challenge 10,000 years of lies. Above them, the Order celebrated their coming victory. They had no idea what was about to happen. The night before the funeral was the longest of Marcus Cole's life. He worked without rest, connecting ancient systems to modern networks and testing broadcast frequencies that had not been used in 8,000 years. Sirith sat in the center of the hidden archives, surrounded by floating displays. She was reading. She was memorizing. She was preparing to give the most important speech in the history of her species. Tell me about humanity, she said. Suddenly Marcus looked up from his work. What do you want to know? How did you survive? She asked. Your species is so young and so small, and you have no natural weapons, and you cannot see in the dark or breathe underwater or survive in vacuum. Marcus set down his tools and sat across from her. We survived because we remember, he said. Sirith tilted her head. I do not understand. Humans tell stories, Marcus explained. We have been telling them since we lived in caves, and every generation passes down what they learn to the next, and we remember our heroes and our villains and our failings and our failures. He gestured at the archives around them. Your people used to do the same thing, he said. But the Order took that away from you, and they made you forget, and they turned your history into propaganda. And that is why you came here. Sirith said, not for military intelligence or technology, but for our stories. Marcus nodded. We knew something was wrong with the Valenthari, he said. Your empire acts against its own interests, and it starts wars that cost more than they gain, and it alienates potential allies for no logical reason. He leaned forward. That kind of self-destructive behavior does not happen naturally, he continued. Someone has to engineer it, and they have to work very hard to keep it going. The Order. Exactly, Marcus confirmed. They have been poisoning your civilization for so long that the poison feels normal, and the only cure is to remember what healthy looked like. Sirith looked at the glowing sphere on its pedestal. The old princess said that the truth is the only weapon that can defeat them. She was right, Marcus said. The Order has prepared for every military threat imaginable, but they never prepared for this, because they believed they had destroyed it forever. A soft chime interrupted them. Marcus checked his transmitter, and his face lit up. They are here, he said. Who? Our allies. Marcus pulled up a display showing the space around the Valenthari. Homeworld ships were appearing from hyperspace. Not human ships, ships from dozens of different species. Some were former subjects of the Empire, who had won their independence through desperate struggle. Some were neighbors who had lived in fear of Valenthari expansion for generations. Some were wanderers and traders and explorers who simply believed that the galaxy deserved better than endless war. They are not here to fight, Marcus said before Sirith could ask. They are here to bear witness and to show your people that there is another way, and that the galaxy does not have to be an enemy. Sirith stared at the display. How did you convince so many species to come? I did not convince them, Marcus said. I just told them what we found, and they made their own choices. He smiled. That is another thing humans are good at, he added, making friends. The night passed slowly. Marcus finished his work on the broadcast systems and ran test after test until he was certain everything would function. Sirith rehearsed her speech until she knew every word by heart, and then she threw it away and decided to speak from her soul instead. As dawn approached, they shared a meal from emergency rations that Marcus had hidden in his clothing. I never asked why you really chose me, Sirith said. You said you needed the archives, but there must have been other ways to access them. Marcus was quiet for a moment. When I was young, he said, I was not like other children, and I was too quiet and too strange, and I noticed things that nobody else cared about. He looked at her. I spent most of my childhood being ignored, he continued. Teachers forgot my name and other children did not invite me to play, and my own parents sometimes seemed to look right through me. Syrah said nothing, but her eyes showed understanding. Eventually, I learned that being overlooked could be a strength. Marcus said, I could go places others could not, and see things others missed and nobody expected anything from me, so I was free to exceed their expectations. He reached out and took her hand. When I saw you sitting alone in that throne room, I recognized something, he said. I saw someone who had been underestimated her entire life, and who had turned that pain into patience and wisdom. Syrah's skin flushed with color for the first time since they had met. You saw all that in one moment. Humans are very good at seeing people, Marcus said. We have to be, and it is how we survive. The morning light began to filter down through hidden shafts in the ceiling. Far above them, the funeral ceremony was beginning. The emperor's body lay in state in the great throne room, and thousands of nobles gathered to mourn and to witness the declaration that would send the galaxy to war. The 6 remaining royals stood in a row before their father's corpse. Prince Catherine stepped forward to speak. Our father was murdered, he announced, and his voice carried across the empire through every screen and speaker. He was murdered by humans with the help of a traitor from our own family. Images of Syrah and Marcus appeared in the air. These criminals have fled like the cowards they are, Catherine continued, but their crime will not go unpunished, and today we declare war on humanity and on all who shelter them. The crowd roared with approval, but deep beneath the palace, Marcus pressed a button, and every screen in the empire flickered. Catherine's face vanished, and Syrah appeared in his place. People of the Volunthari, she said, and her voice was calm and clear. My brother calls me a traitor, but I ask you to listen before you judge. In the throne room, chaos erupted. Guards tried to shut down the broadcast, but signal was coming from systems they did not know existed. Catherine screamed orders, but nobody could obey them. For 10,000 years you have been lied to, Syrah continued. You have been told that conquest is your destiny, and that other species are your enemies, and that war is the only path to glory. Images began to appear behind her, images from the hidden archives, images of the old Volunthari. But this is who we really are, Syrah said. We were explorers and teachers and friends to 100 worlds, and we built wonders that lasted millennia, and we solved problems that other species thought were impossible. The images showed the beauty of the old civilization, cities of crystal and light, ships that carried knowledge instead of weapons, alliances that spanned the galaxy. We did not lose this future, Syrah said. It was stolen from us. New images appeared. Documents with the seal of the Order of the Illuminated Path, confessions from members who had been silenced, records of assassinations and forgeries, and lies upon lies upon lies. A conspiracy has controlled our empire since before my father's father was born, Syrah said. They have started every war we have fought, and they have killed everyone who tried to stop them, and they have made us forget who we truly are. She stepped closer to the camera. My father was not killed by humans, she said. He was killed by the Order because he was beginning to ask questions. In the throne room, Prince Catherine's face went pale. Behind him, several advisors began quietly moving toward the exits. You have a choice, Syrah said. You can believe the lies and follow my brothers into a war that will destroy everything. She paused. Or you can remember. The broadcast showed one final image, a fleet of ships from dozens of species hanging peacefully in space above the homeworld. These are not invaders, Syrah said. They are witnesses, and they are here because they believe we can be better, and they are here because a human convinced them to give us one chance. She looked directly into the camera. I'm asking you to take that chance. The broadcast ended, and in the throne room below, the silence was absolute. The silence in the throne room stretched for an eternity. Thousands of nobles stood frozen as the images from Sirith's broadcast continued to play on screens throughout the chamber. Prince Catherine was the first to move. "Lies," he shouted, and his voice cracked with desperation. "All of it lies, and the human has corrupted her mind, and she is a traitor just like we said." He turned to his siblings. "Order the fleets to attack," he demanded. "Destroy those ships before they can threaten us." But his brothers and sisters did not move. They were staring at the evidence floating in the air around them. Documents with signatures they recognized, faces of advisors who had served their family for generations, decisions that had never made sense. Suddenly becoming clear. "Brother," Princess Vela said slowly, "look at the trade agreements from the Keshan conflict, and look at who profited." She pulled up a holographic display. "These are our own records," she said. "I verified them myself years ago, but I never noticed the pattern." "There is no pattern," Catherine insisted. "The human has fabricated everything." "No," said the warrior prince, and his voice was heavy with realization. "The human has shown us what was already there, and we simply refuse to see it." In the crowd, the nobles were whispering. Some of them were checking the evidence against their own memories. Some of them were remembering strange events from their past, promotions that came after convenient deaths, policies that enriched unknown parties, wars that began for reasons that nobody could quite explain. One elderly noble stepped forward. "I knew your grandfather," she said to the royal children. "He once told me that the empire had lost its way, and I asked him what he meant, but the next day he was dead, and everyone said it was his heart." She looked at the screens showing Sirith's evidence. "I never believed it was his heart." More voices joined her. Stories that had been buried for generations began to surface. Questions that had been forbidden suddenly demanded answers. Prince Catherine watched his support crumbling, and something in his eyes shifted from anger to fear to desperation. "Guards," he shouted. "Arrest anyone who speaks against the crown and arrest anyone who—" Enough. The voice came from the youngest of the prince's prince. Thelem had barely spoken during the succession ceremony, and he had always been overshadowed by his older siblings, but now he stepped forward, and his skin glowed with a color that none of them had seen in years. The color of conviction. "Our sister is telling the truth," he said. "Had felt it for years, and something wrong at the heart of everything we do, and something that made no sense." He looked at the images of the old Valenthari. "We are supposed to be better than this." One by one, the other siblings turned away from Catherine. Even the twin princes who had always supported him could not meet his eyes. "You are all fools," Catherine snarled. "The Order has kept us strong for 10,000 years. And without them, we would be nothing." The throne room went completely silent. Catherine seemed to realize what he had just admitted. "I mean," he stammered, "there is no order, and I was speaking hypothetically, and—" "You knew," Princess Vela said, and her voice was ice. "You knew this whole time." Catherine's skin flushed with colors of panic. "I did what was necessary," he said. "The Order promised me the throne, and they promised me power over every species in the galaxy, and all I had to do was—" He stopped, but everyone had heard enough. Guards who had served the royal family for decades slowly turned to face Catherine, Prince Catherine. The captain of the guard said, "You are under arrest for conspiracy against the Empire." Catherine tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. As the guards led him away, he screamed about the Order's revenge and about how they would all regret this. Nobody listened in the hidden archives below. Marcus watched everything through the ancient monitoring systems. "She did it," he said, and his voice was thick with emotion. "She actually did it." Sirith sat beside him with tears streaming down her face. "Not just me," she said. "We did it together." They watched as the remaining siblings gathered in the throne room. They watched as Princess Velith proposed that Sirith be summoned to take her place among them. They watched as one by one the others agreed. "You should go up there," Marcus said. "Not yet," Sirith replied, "There is something I need to do first." She activated the ancient broadcast system one more time. Her face appeared on every screen in the Empire. "People of the Velanthari," she said, "today we have taken the first step toward remembering who we truly are, but the journey is just beginning." She stood and walked toward the stairs that would lead her back to the surface. "I am not going to ask you to follow me," she said. "I am not going to demand your loyalty or promise you power or threaten you with punishment." She paused at the bottom of the stairs. "I am only going to ask you to think," she continued, "to question what you have been told and to seek the truth for yourselves." She began to climb. "The archives will be open to everyone," she said. "Every record and every document and every secret that was hidden from you. And you deserve to know your own history." The broadcast showed the alien ships still waiting peacefully in orbit, and I am going to propose something that has not been done in 10,000 years. Sirith said, "A true alliance and not conquest, but cooperation and not domination, but friendship." She reached the top of the stairs and emerged into the light. "We can be what we were, always meant to be." She ended the broadcast and walked into the throne room. Her siblings were waiting. The crowd of nobles parted before her like water. She walked past enemies who had mocked her and rivals who had ignored her and servants who had been her only friends. She walked until she stood before the empty throne, where her father's body had been taken away, and there she stopped. "I do not want the throne," she said. Gasps filled the chamber. "I want something better," she continued. "I want a council where every voice can be heard, and I want a government that serves the people instead of ruling them." She turned to face her siblings. "I want us to be a family again." The eldest remaining princess, Princess Velith, was the first to respond. She walked forward, and for the first time in her life she knelt before her youngest sister. "Then let us begin," she said. One by one the others followed, not because Sirith had power over them, but because for the first time they could see clearly, and what they saw was someone worth following. Months later, the galaxy had changed in ways that nobody had predicted. The Order of the Illuminated Path had been exposed, and its members faced justice in courts that broadcast their trials. To every world, the Velanthari Empire had become the Velanthari Alliance, and new species were joining every month. The archives had become a place of pilgrimage where beings from across the galaxy came to learn and to share their own histories. Marcus Cole stood on a balcony overlooking the celebration below. Sirith found him there as the sun set over the capital. "You could have gone home," she said. "The human government offered you a hero's welcome and command of any ship you wanted." Marcus smiled. "They offered me power and riches," he said, "just like your siblings did. And you refused. I found something better." He turned to look at her. "I found someone who remembers," he said. "Someone who understands that the past matters, and that truth matters, and that the people everyone ignores are usually the ones who see the clearest." Sirith's skin glowed with colors he had learned to read: happiness and hope and something deeper. "Stay," she said. "Help us build something new." Marcus took her hand. "I thought you would never ask." Far below them, the celebration continued. Humans danced with Velanthari. Species that had been enemies for generations shared meals and stories. Children laughed without knowing how close they had come to a war that would have killed them all. And in the archives, the ancient princess's image smiled from her pedestal. Her message had finally been heard. The truth had finally been spoken, and the galaxy had finally begun to heal. Not because of fleets or weapons or conquest, but because one human had looked at a forgotten princess and seen everything she could become, and because she had trusted him enough to try in the end. That was all it took. Not power, not riches, just two people who refused to forget, and a galaxy that was ready to remember the end.